All right, in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about changing a photograph image size to accompany a matte border. So basically what I'm saying is, let's say I have a 24 by 36 inch picture frame, and I have a 24 by 36 inch image I would like to put in that picture frame. However, I've got a 2-inch border around the whole picture frame. So the opening of the matte border is actually less than 24 by 36 inches because it's got a 2-inch border around it. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be some clipping that occurs when that happens. And to try to explain this, I'm going to just show you this little definition about ratios pertaining to image aspect ratio. And I'm going to try to give you my best take on how to explain it. I'm not a professional at ratios, but I can kind of tell you what I understand about it. So without further ado, let's look at this definition of what an image aspect ratio is. So what is the image aspect ratio? Well, the aspect ratio is the proportional relationship between an image's width and an image's height. Okay, so now that we kind of understand the definition, let's just zoom into this. So what I have showing here is a diagram of some of the most common frame sizes and their aspect ratios. So a 2:3 ratio, we have all these different frame sizes within this ratio that are very kind of popular common sizes for frames. Then we have the ISO, which is the international standard. I believe it's also known as DIN standard, which I believe is just a different organization that named it the DIN standard. But I believe they're exactly the same. I could be wrong on that, but I believe they're pretty much the same thing. Then we have a 4:5 ratio. We have 11:14 ratio, and then we have a 3:4 ratio. Now, basically, if you look at the 2:3 ratio and you compare it to the 4:5 ratio, as you can see, the 2:3 ratio is a lot taller than it is wide when you're talking about proportions. So it's 3 times taller than versus the 2 times width, basically. And that probably doesn't make sense, but proportion wise, if you look at it compared to the 4:5 ratio, you can see the 4:5 ratio is a lot shorter in proportion to its width. It's not quite a square, but it's, approaching that. If it got any shorter, it would be a square, and a square would be a 1-to-1 ratio, basically, because the width is basically equal to the height in a square. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. And then if you want to think about TVs, a lot of the TVs now, or like your cell phone, if you're watching something on it in landscape mode or horizontal mode, it would normally be like closer to a 16:9 ratio. So, which means it's a lot wider than it is height-wise. So, anyway, now that we have a little bit of an understanding about ratios, sorry, I tried to explain it as best as I can. Let's go into resizing an image to fit a border, a matte border for a picture frame. Okay, so I have an image here, and it's 24 by 36 inches. And we can just verify that by going into image. And let me just zoom out on this. And as you can see, the image is 24 inches wide by 36 inches tall. And the resolution is 300 dpi, which is great because that's usually a really good standard for printing, is to have a high DPI, and 300 is a very good size DPI. Okay, so I have pre-made a little demonstration border, and if you think of this blue area as a matte border in a picture frame, and I made this 2 inches, it's a 2-inch wide border basically, so it's 2 inches all the way around, right? So if you were to measure this, you would know that the inside width that's showing in between the mat, basically you just did the math. Here, I'll just pull up a calculator to kind of illustrate it. All right, so we know it's 24 inches wide. We know we've got 2 inches on the left that we have to deduct and 2 inches on the right that we have to deduct. So that's 4 inches. So we're going to subtract 4. So that's 20 inches wide in between this blue frame that is visible behind the mat, basically. And then we know that it's 36 inches tall, and we're going to subtract 4 because we've got 2 inches on the top and 2 inches on the bottom that we have to deduct. So we know it's 32. So we basically have a 32 by 20, 32 by 20. So let's just create actually, let me just add some text. So we have 20 by 32. All right. So that's our opening size. Okay, so let me just put this down here so we can see it. All right. So our opening is 20 inches from left to right, and then 32 from top to bottom. That's our opening size. Now, here kind of becomes the problem, because you would think, well, let's just make the image 20 by 32. And actually, you wouldn't really want to change the image size to 20 by 32. Because what's going to happen is, let's say you change the image size to 20 by 32. You send it to your printer guy. They're going to print it out and cut it down to size 20 inches by 32. Well, that's the exact width between this picture frame mat. So what's going to happen is, when you get it back, you're going to get a picture frame, or a picture that's the exact size of the mat. So when you put the picture behind the mat to tape onto, you're going to have to be extremely precise. So really, what I would want to do is, I would want to make the size of this, I would like to give it a 1/2 inch on each side, at least 1/2 inch on each side. So that would be 1/2 inch on the left, 1/2 inch on the right, 1/2 inch on the top, and 1/2 inch on the bottom. So we know that equals to 1 inch. So I'm going to change this size to 21 by 33. All right. So that's our size. So you would think. Okay. And here's why I'm saying so you would think. Even though that's the size of this frame width, the problem is it's not the exact ratio. Because when you scale something down, it's not going to be the same width as what our matte border is. And let me try to explain that let me close this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to copy this layer. Do Control A for all, and Control Copy. So I'm copying the layer of this image and create a new layer. All right. Now I'm going to hit Control T to transform it. And let's just change the width. Let's see. I want to make sure constrained proportions are locked. So what was that? 21. So we're going to type in 21 up here. And as you can see, the correct proportion for 21 is 31.5 tall. So this is a 2:3 ratio. I'm just going to move it to the side here so you can see kind of how that is. So now let me turn on the map border to try to give you a more visual representation. So let's see here. Let me turn off the background. And I'm going to put this in the center here. As you can see, we really need this image to be taller because it's, you see this little checkerboard pattern in the back? That means it's, obviously it's not going to be tall enough. So if we had it printed out at this size, which is actually 21 inches wide by 31.5. Now we can uncheck this box, this little maintain aspect ratio box. But what's going to happen is if I check that and change the size to 33 high, it's going to stretch the image. So let me just show you that. So I'm going to turn that to 33. Okay. You see how it distorted it and it stretched the image? Well, if I'm okay with that, that's fine. But just so you know, that is going to change the distortion of the image. So it's kind of, it's changing the proportion. So I don't want to do that. So let's go back and change it to, or let me just undo that. Okay. Okay, so it was originally at 31.50. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click the proportions, the aspect, to lock the aspect ratio. And I'm just going to change it to 33 inches high. And it's going to change it to 21 inches wide, which I'm okay with. Actually, let's see here. I don't like that it clipped that. So what I will do is I will split the difference. So instead of 33, I'm going to take off half an inch. So it'd be 32.5. Okay. So that's going to give me 1/4 inch on the top and 1/4 inch on the bottom to tape to. And then it's going to give me 1/2 inches on the left and the right. So that's good. I'm okay with that. And you can kind of, you can move this around. And so you can see these borders show the what size the actual image is. So if I click off of that, it'll show you what it looks like. And then I want to basically adjust this a little bit. I'm going to move it to the right. And obviously you'll be doing this in real life. You'll be taking the piece of paper or the printed paper and taping it to the back. All right. So now that we know this is the size, we're going to note that down, write it down on a piece of paper. And actually, let me just turn on the text. And we know we need this size to be, what was that size? It was 21.67. So 21.67. 0.67 by 32.5, I believe. 32.5. Okay. Let me resize this. All right. Bear with me, guys. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. So we know we want this image size to be 21.67 by 32.5. Okay. So let me just write that down so I know it, so I don't have to keep coming back to this. 21.67 by 32.5. All right. So that's the size we want it printed out at. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close all these references, and that's the original image. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to image and image size, and we'll just zoom out of here, and I'm going to type those into here. So I have the constraint proportion box checked up here. So if I type in 21.67, it should give me it comes out to 32.505. The 05 you'll never notice. For layman's terms, it's 32.5 inches. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to resize this image. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, since I have all these layers open, I'm going to delete all these layers because otherwise it's going to want me to save it as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to get rid of all these layers because these layers are mostly for the tutorial. Okay. Now all the layers are gone. Okay, this is the final step, guys. We're just going to do a save as. And for the sake of this, I'm just going to delete all of this, and I'm just going to save it as 21.67 by 32.5. And that's the image size. And we'll just label this woman line drawing. All right. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to keep the color profile the same. So I'm going to check this embed color profile. And then I'm just going to click save. And then you're going to have this little dialog box that comes up. If you're printing it, I would just keep this set to maximum and then just hit OK. All right, guys, that's it. We have taken an image and we have resized it to fit within a border mat for a picture frame. And we've done it all without, while maintaining the aspect ratio. So, you know, if you think about it, you would think, oh, well, I just need to subtract the width by the height and give me the opening. And then I change, give it a little extra room so I can tape it to the back. But actually, if you did it that way, as you can see, it changes the aspect ratio of the image. That's why aspect ratios are kind of good to understand, at least a little understanding of it. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful, and thank you very much.